The fluorescent lights of Martinez family diner buzzed softly in the pre-dawn darkness of Queens, New York. At exactly 4:22 a.m., Elena Rodriguez stood at the worn wooden cutting board, her calloused hands moving with practiced efficiency as she diced onions for the day's first batch of breakfast burritos. Steam rose from the industrial stove behind her, where a massive pot of beans simmered. The rhythm of her knife against the cutting board was the only sound in the empty kitchen, a meditation she had perfected over 3 years of opening shifts. Elena was 26 but looked older. Dark circles shadowed her brown eyes, and her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun that revealed the premature gray strands at her temples. She wore the same faded red apron every morning, the one with a small burn mark near the pocket from when she had first started working here. Outside, the streets of Queens were still asleep. The occasional taxi rumbled past, and a few early morning joggers were beginning their routines. But inside the diner, Elena existed in her own world. A world of chopped vegetables, sizzling skillets, and the constant mental calculation of how many more shifts she needed before she could pay this month's rent. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She wiped her hands on a towel and checked the screen. A text from Mrs. Chen, her neighbor who watched her 7-year-old daughter Sophie. Sophie had a fever last night, 101 degrees. She's sleeping now but might need doctor visit today. Elena's chest tightened. A doctor visit meant at least $200 at the urgent care clinic. Money she did not have. She had exactly $43 in her checking account until Friday's paycheck. She texted back quickly. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I will figure it out. Be there at 2 p.m. to pick her up." The bell above the diner's front door chimed. Elena glanced at the clock. 4:30 a.m. Too early for their usual morning regulars. Through the small window between the kitchen and the dining area, she saw Mr. Martinez, the owner, walking in with another man. This stranger was tall, maybe 6'3", wearing an expensive-looking charcoal suit despite the early hour. His dark hair was slicked back, and even from the kitchen Elena could see the glint of gold cufflinks. Mr. Martinez looked nervous, which was unusual. In the 15 years he had owned this diner, Elena had never seen him rattled. But now his hands trembled slightly as he gestured toward a corner booth. The stranger sat down with his back to the wall, a position that allowed him to see the entire diner. His eyes were sharp, calculating. When they briefly met Elena's through the window, she felt a chill run down her spine and quickly looked away. Mr. Martinez hurried into the kitchen, his face pale. "Elena, I need you to make 2 coffees, black, strong, and then maybe you take your break early today, yes?" Elena nodded slowly. In 3 years, Mr. Martinez had never asked her to take an early break. She prepared the coffees, her hands steady despite the strange tension in the air. When she brought the cups out, she kept her eyes down, setting them on the table quickly. But as she turned to leave, the stranger spoke. "You come here every morning at this time?" His voice was deep with a slight accent she could not place. Italian, maybe, or somewhere from the Mediterranean. Elena hesitated. "Yes, sir. I open the kitchen." The stranger nodded slowly, studying her face in a way that made her uncomfortable. Not in a predatory way, but with an intensity that suggested he was memorizing every detail. Mr. Martinez cleared his throat. "Elena is my best worker. Very reliable. Never late." The stranger took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving Elena. "What is your name?" "Elena Rodriguez, sir, and you live in Queens?" "Yes, sir, not far from here, family." Elena's protective instincts flared. "Just my daughter. She is 7. The stranger nodded again, then waved his hand dismissively. "Thank you for the coffee, Elena Rodriguez." She returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding. Through the window, she watched the 2 men talk in low voices. Mr. Martinez looked increasingly uncomfortable, occasionally wiping his forehead with a napkin. After about 20 minutes, the stranger stood up, shook Mr. Martinez's hand, and left without another word. The moment the door closed, Mr. Martinez slumped in the booth, his head in his hands. Elena waited a few minutes before approaching him. "Mr. Martinez, is everything okay?" He looked up at her, and for the first time she saw real fear in his eyes. "Elena, that man who was just here, his name is Vincent Marchetti. Do you know this name?" She shook her head. Mr. Martinez lowered his voice to barely a whisper. "He is very powerful man. Very dangerous man. I owe him money. A lot of money." My son, he got into trouble with gambling, and I borrowed from the wrong people to help him. Now they send Mr. Marchetti to collect. Elena's mouth went dry. How much do you owe? $50,000. Mr. Martinez's voice cracked. I have until the end of the month. 3 weeks. If I do not pay, they will take the diner. Maybe worse. Elena felt her own problems pale in comparison. Mr. Martinez had given her this job when no one else would hire a single mother with no college degree and a gap in her work history. He had been patient when she needed time off for Sophie's school events. He had even given her advances on her paycheck when emergencies arose. I am so sorry, Mr. Martinez. He shook his head. You do not tell anyone about this, understand? Not even the other workers. This is very dangerous business. Elena nodded and returned to the kitchen. But as she resumed chopping vegetables for the morning rush, her mind raced. She thought about Vincent Marchetti's calculating eyes, the way he had studied her face, the questions about her family. Something about that encounter felt significant, though she could not explain why. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. By 2 p.m., when she finally clocked out, exhaustion had settled into her bones. She had been awake since 3 a.m., had worked 9 straight hours, and still had to pick up Sophie, possibly take her to the doctor, figure out dinner, and somehow find energy to help with homework. The N train was packed with afternoon commuters. Elena stood near the door, swaying with the motion of the subway car, her mind wandering to places she usually kept locked away. She thought about Columbia University, where she had been a sophomore studying business administration, before everything fell apart. She thought about the scholarship she had earned, the professors who had believed in her potential, the future that had seemed so bright and possible. Then she thought about Marcus, Sophie's father, who had seemed so charming and supportive until the pregnancy test came back positive. How quickly he had disappeared, blocking her number, transferring to a different college, leaving her completely alone. She thought about her parents, who had begged her to give the baby up for adoption, who had called her foolish and irresponsible, who had eventually stopped calling altogether. The choice had been impossible but also inevitable. She could not afford childcare and tuition. She could not keep her scholarship while taking a semester off, and she would not give up her daughter. So she had left Columbia after her sophomore year, found the cheapest apartment she could in Queens, and started working at Martinez Family Diner. That was 7 years ago. Sophie was worth it. Every sacrifice, every exhausting shift, every abandoned dream, it was all worth it for her daughter's smile. But sometimes, in quiet moments like these, Elena allowed herself to feel the weight of everything she had lost. Mrs. Chen's apartment smelled like ginger tea and tiger balm. Sophie was curled up on the couch watching cartoons, her small face flushed with fever. Mama! Sophie's face brightened despite her illness. Elena knelt beside the couch and felt her daughter's forehead. Still warm, but not as hot as Mrs. Chen had described. How are you feeling, baby? My throat hurts, and I'm tired. Elena looked at Mrs. Chen. What do you think? Does she need the doctor? Mrs. Chen, a retired nurse, examined Sophie with practiced efficiency. Probably just a virus. Keep her hydrated. Give children's Tylenol for the fever, if it goes above 102 or lasts more than 3 days. Then doctor relief flooded through Elena. Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Chen. As they walked the 2 blocks back to their own apartment, Sophie held Elena's hand tightly. Mama, why do you have to work so early in the morning? Elena squeezed her daughter's hand. Because that is when Mr. Martinez needs me, baby. And the early shift means I can pick you up from school most days, but you are always tired. Elena smiled sadly. I know, but I am okay. As long as I have you, I'm okay. Their apartment was small, just 1 bedroom that they shared. But Elena had made it as warm and welcoming as possible. Sophie's drawings covered 1 wall. Books lined makeshift shelves. A small TV sat on a donated dresser. Elena tucked Sophie into bed and sat beside her, stroking her hair until she fell asleep. Then she moved to the tiny kitchen table and opened her laptop, the one luxury she had kept from her college days. She did this sometimes when exhaustion could not quite overcome hope. She looked at online courses, free business classes, certification programs she might be able to afford someday. Someday. That word had become both a lifeline and a torture. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost did not answer. but something made her pick up Elena Rodriguez. The voice was familiar, deep, accented. Yes? Who is this? Vincent Marchetti. We met this morning at the diner. Elena's blood went cold. How did you get my number? That does not matter. I have a proposition for you. Can we meet tomorrow morning? Same diner, same time. I do not think that is a good idea, Mr. Marchetti. His laugh was dark. I am not asking, Ms. Rodriguez. 4:22 a.m., be there. The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, staring at her phone. Every instinct told her not to go. But another part of her, the part that had fought and survived for 7 years, knew that ignoring Vincent Marchetti was not an option. Whatever happened tomorrow morning would change everything. She could feel it. Elena barely slept that night. She lay beside Sophie, listening to her daughter's congested breathing, her mind spinning with possibilities about what Vincent Marchetti could possibly want from her. At 3:15 a.m., she gave up on sleep entirely. She showered in cold water to shock herself awake, dressed in her usual work clothes, jeans, and a simple black t-shirt, and kissed Sophie's forehead before slipping out quietly. Mrs. Chen had agreed to come over at 6 a.m. to stay with Sophie until Elena's shift ended. The elderly woman had sensed Elena's anxiety, but asked no questions, which was one of the many reasons Elena trusted her. The subway ride to the diner felt longer than usual. Every stop, every opening door made Elena's heart race. She kept replaying Mr. Martinez's words. Very powerful man. Very dangerous man. When she arrived at Martinez family diner at 4:15 a.m., the lights were already on. Through the window, she could see Vincent Marchetti sitting in the same corner booth, a cup of coffee already in front of him. Elena's hands trembled as she unlocked the door and stepped inside. You are early, Marchetti said without looking up from his phone. I like that. Punctuality shows respect. Elena said nothing. She walked past him toward the kitchen, but his voice stopped her. Sit down, Ms. Rodriguez. We need to talk before your boss arrives. I need to start prep work. The morning rush starts at 6. Marchetti finally looked up, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. I said sit down. It was not a request. Elena slowly lowered herself into the booth across from him, keeping her hands folded in her lap to hide their shaking. Marchetti studied her for a long moment. Do you know why I asked about you yesterday? Why I wanted to know your name, your situation? No, sir. Because in my line of work you learn to read people very quickly. And when I saw you through that window at 4:22 in the morning, chopping vegetables like your life depended on it, I saw something I do not see very often anymore. He paused. I saw desperation, but also dignity. You are drowning, but you refuse to stop swimming. Elena's throat tightened. I do not understand what this has to do with anything. Marchetti leaned forward. I did some research on you last night. Elena Rodriguez, age 26. Dropout from Columbia University after sophomore year. No criminal record. Father of your child is nowhere to be found. Parents cut you off. You work 60-hour weeks at this diner, making $13 an hour. You live in a 400-square-foot apartment with your daughter. You have $43 in your bank account and $317 in credit card debt. Elena felt violated, exposed. How do you know all of this? Because I wanted to know. Marchetti's voice softened slightly. Do you know why you quit Columbia, Elena? The real reason? Anger flared in her chest. I think you already know the answer to that. Tell me anyway. Elena's voice came out harder than she intended. Because I got pregnant. Because the father ran away. Because my scholarship did not cover childcare. And I could not work enough hours to pay for both school and rent and food. Because I had to choose between my education and my daughter's life. So I chose her. I will always choose her. Marchetti nodded slowly, something like respect flickering in his eyes. And do you regret it? Never. Even though you are working yourself to death? Even though your daughter sees you exhausted every single day? Even though every door that was once open to you is now closed? Elena's hands clenched into fists. What do you want from me, Mr. Marchetti? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He slid it across the table. Open it. Elena hesitated, then opened the envelope. Inside were documents, financial statements, property deeds, and a photograph that made her stomach drop. It was Mr. Martinez with a woman and 2 young men. His family. Mr. Martinez owes me $50,000, Marchetti said quietly. He has 3 weeks to pay. If he cannot pay, I take the diner. And when people cannot pay their debts to me, sometimes other consequences follow. Consequences that affect families. Elena's voice shook with rage. Are you threatening him? Threatening his family. I'm explaining reality. Marchetti's tone remained calm, almost gentle. In my world, debts must be paid. One way or another. Elena pushed the envelope back across the table. I do not want any part of this. I just want to work my shift and take care of my daughter. But Marchetti pushed the envelope back. I am not finished. There is another option. An option that could solve Mr. Martinez's problem and also solve some of your problems. I do not have any money to give you. I do not want your money. Marchetti pulled out another document. I want your skills. Elena stared at him in confusion. What skills? I chop vegetables and flip eggs. You were studying business administration at Columbia. You were on the dean's list both semesters before you left. You wrote a paper on financial restructuring that your professor called brilliant. He slid a printed copy of her old essay across the table. I need someone with those skills. Someone smart. Someone desperate enough to take a risk. Someone who has everything to lose, which makes them trustworthy in ways that ambitious people never are. The diner door opened. Mr. Martinez walked in and froze when he saw them sitting together. Good morning, Jorge, Marchetti said pleasantly. I was just offering Ms. Rodriguez here a business opportunity. Mr. Martinez looked between them, his face pale. Vincent, please. Elena has nothing to do with my problems. Actually, she has everything to do with your problems. Because I am going to make you a deal, Jorge. Marchetti stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. If Elena agrees to work for me for 6 months, your debt is forgiven. Completely. You keep your diner. Your family stays safe. Everyone wins. Elena felt the room spin. Work for you doing what? I own several legitimate businesses that need better financial management. Restaurants, import-export companies, real estate holdings. You would analyze their operations, find inefficiencies, increase profit margins. It is exactly what you were studying to do at Columbia. Mr. Martinez stepped forward. Elena, you do not have to do this. I will find another way. But Elena was already doing the math in her head. 6 months working for a mob boss versus Mr. Martinez losing everything, maybe getting hurt, maybe worse. What would the pay be? She heard herself ask. Marchetti smiled. $5,000 a month, plus benefits, plus a bonus if you achieve the targets I set. Elena's mind reeled. $5,000 a month was more than double what she made at the diner. In 6 months, she could save money, pay off her debts, maybe even start taking night classes again. But working for the Mafia. The danger. The illegality. What if she got arrested? What would happen to Sophie? As if reading her mind, Marchetti added, Everything you would do for me is completely legal. Financial analysis. Business consulting. Nothing more. You would have no exposure to any other aspects of my operations. And if anything ever happened, you would have full legal protection. I take care of my people, Elena. I need time to think about this. You have until the end of this conversation. Marchetti checked his watch, which is in about 2 minutes. Vincent, please, Mr. Martinez pleaded. Give her more time. Elena looked at her boss, this kind man who had given her a chance when she had nothing. She thought about his family in that photograph. She thought about Sophie's fever last night, and how she had felt relief that she did not have to spend $200 on a doctor visit. She thought about 7 more years of chopping vegetables at 4:22 a.m., 7 more years of exhaustion and barely surviving, 7 more years of someday never coming. I will do it, she said quietly. 6 months. But I have conditions. Marchetti raised an eyebrow. I am listening. My daughter comes first, always. If she needs me, I leave work immediately, no questions asked. I work from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. so I can pick her up from school. And if I ever feel like she is in danger because of this arrangement, I walk away and you leave me alone. Forever. Marchetti considered this. Agreed. What else? Mr. Martinez's debt is forgiven completely the moment I start. Not after 6 months now, Marchetti smiled widely. You drive a hard bargain, Elena Rodriguez. Fine. Agreed. He pulled out another document from his jacket already prepared. A contract. Elena scanned it quickly, her Columbia education kicking in. Everything he had promised was there in black and white. She picked up the pen he offered and signed. The moment the ink dried, she felt like she had just made a deal with the devil himself. Welcome to Marchetti Enterprises, Vincent said, extending his hand. You start tomorrow, 5 a.m. My driver will pick you up at your apartment. Wait, tomorrow? I need to give notice here, already handled. Marchetti turned to Mr. Martinez. Jorge, you will need to hire a new morning prep cook. I am sure you understand. Mr. Martinez looked at Elena with a mixture of gratitude and guilt. Elena, I'm so sorry. Elena shook her head. It is okay, Mr. Martinez, really. But it was not okay. Nothing about this was okay. After Marchetti left, Elena and Mr. Martinez stood in the empty diner in heavy silence. Finally, Mr. Martinez spoke. You did not have to do this for me. Yes, I did. Elena tried to smile. Besides, maybe it will be good. Better pay, better hours. Maybe I can finally start building something for Sophie. But her voice lacked conviction, and they both knew it. Elena worked her final shift at the diner in a daze. The regular customers came and went. She made breakfast burritos and huevos rancheros and pancakes with mechanical efficiency. Her coworkers noticed something was off, but she deflected their questions. During her lunch break, she called Mrs. Chen and asked if she could watch Sophie for a few extra hours each day for the next 6 months. Mrs. Chen agreed without hesitation, refusing to accept more money despite Elena's insistence. At 2 p.m., when Elena finally left Martinez family diner for the last time, she stood on the sidewalk and looked back through the window. This place had been her stability for 7 years. Low-paying, exhausting stability, but stability nonetheless. Now she was walking away from it into complete uncertainty. When she picked up Sophie from Mrs. Chen's apartment, her daughter's fever had broken. Sophie was watching cartoons and eating crackers, looking much better. Mama, you look sad, Sophie said, climbing into Elena's lap. Did something bad happen? Elena held her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. No, baby, something changed, but maybe it will be good. We will see. That night, after Sophie fell asleep, Elena sat at her laptop researching Vincent Marchetti. What she found terrified her. He was linked to multiple criminal investigations, though never charged. His name appeared in connection with racketeering, money laundering, extortion. But he was also connected to dozens of legitimate businesses throughout New York and New Jersey. He was 42 years old, unmarried, no children. Born in Naples, Italy, immigrated to the United States at age 15. Built an empire through methods she could only imagine, and now she worked for him. Elena closed her laptop and stared at the ceiling of her tiny apartment. She had made her choice. For better or worse, she had jumped off the cliff. Now she could only hope there was something to catch her at the bottom. The black Mercedes arrived at exactly 4:45 a.m. Elena had been waiting on the sidewalk for 10 minutes, unable to stay in her apartment a moment longer. Sophie was still asleep, and Mrs. Chen had arrived early, sensing Elena's nervousness. The driver was a mountain of a man named Tony. He nodded at her but said nothing as he opened the back door. Elena slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire monthly rent. They drove through the pre-dawn streets of Queens, crossed the Queensboro Bridge into Manhattan, and headed downtown. Elena watched the city transform from residential neighborhoods to towering office buildings and luxury condominiums. Finally, they pulled up to a sleek glass building in Tribeca. The sign read Marchetti Financial Group in understated silver letters. Tony opened her door. 30th floor. Mr. Marchetti is expecting you. The lobby was all marble and modern art. A security guard checked her ID and handed her a temporary badge. The elevator was mirrored on all sides, and Elena caught sight of herself looking small and out of place in her simple Target blouse and department store slacks. When the elevator doors opened on the 30th floor, Elena stepped into a world she had only glimpsed before. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. The furniture was minimalist and expensive. Fresh flowers sat on a receptionist's desk, though no receptionist was present at this hour. My office is this way, came Marchetti's voice. He emerged from a hallway wearing dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, no tie, more casual than yesterday but still radiating authority. Elena followed him into a massive corner office. One wall was entirely windows. The others held tasteful art and built-in bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. Coffee? Marchetti asked, moving to an elaborate espresso machine. Please. He made 2 cappuccinos with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times. He handed her one in a delicate porcelain cup. "How is your daughter? Her fever?" Elena was surprised he remembered. "She is better." "Thank you." "Good." Marchetti gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit. We have a lot to cover." For the next hour, Marchetti walked Elena through his legitimate business holdings. 3 upscale Italian restaurants in Manhattan, an import company bringing in olive oil, wine, and specialty foods from Italy, 2 commercial properties in Brooklyn, a catering company, a bakery supply business. Your job is to analyze the financial statements for each business, identify where we are losing money or operating inefficiently, and propose solutions. I want detailed reports every Friday. You will have full access to all accounts, all records, all personnel. Elena's business school training kicked in. Do I have authority to implement changes or just recommend them? You recommend, I decide. But if your recommendations are sound, I will implement them. Marchetti pulled out a sleek laptop and slid it across the desk. This is yours, already set up with access to everything you need. Also this. He handed her a smartphone much newer than her battered 5-year-old device company phone. My direct number is programmed in. You call me day or night if you need anything. And I mean anything, Elena. If you have questions, if you encounter problems, if you feel unsafe, you call me immediately. Elena nodded, overwhelmed. Your office is next door. Marchetti stood and led her to an adjoining room. It was smaller than his, but still impressive. A glass desk, ergonomic chair, and the same stunning view of the river. I will leave you to get started. Financial records for the restaurants are already loaded on your laptop. Start there. I want your initial assessment by Friday. Marchetti started to leave, but paused at the door. Elena, I know you are scared. I know you think you made a deal with the devil. Maybe you did, but I want you to understand something. I chose you not just because you are desperate or talented. I chose you because when I looked into your eyes yesterday morning, I saw someone who understands sacrifice. Someone who knows what it means to protect what matters. That kind of person is rare and valuable. He left before she could respond. Elena sat at her new desk and opened the laptop. Immediately, she was confronted with spreadsheets and financial documents more complex than anything she had seen in her business classes. The first restaurant, Bella Vita in the Upper East Side, was hemorrhaging money. She could see it within minutes. Massive food waste. Overstaffing during slow hours. A wine program with margins so thin they were essentially giving bottles away. Elena lost herself in the numbers. This was what she had loved about business school. The puzzle of it. The way financial statements told stories if you knew how to read them. She had forgotten how much she missed this kind of intellectual challenge. Hours passed without her noticing. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. The new one Marchetti had given her. It was a text from an unknown number. This is Vincent. How was your first day? Elena stared at the message. The Mafia boss checking in like a normal employer. She typed back, overwhelming but good. Found several issues already at Bella Vita. His response came immediately. Excellent. Take lunch break at noon. Tony will bring you food. At noon, Tony appeared with a bag from a nearby bistro. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, and a fresh salad. Elena almost cried. She usually ate $1 menu items or skipped lunch entirely to save money. As she ate at her desk, continuing to work, she allowed herself a dangerous thought. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe she could actually do this. Her old phone buzzed. A text from Sophie's school. Parent-teacher conference next week. Please confirm attendance. Elena's chest tightened. She had missed the last 2 conferences because of work schedule conflicts at the diner. She quickly confirmed, then texted Mrs. Chen to make sure she could stay late that day. By 2 p.m., Elena had compiled a preliminary report on Bella Vita with 14 specific recommendations. She saved it and gathered her things. When she stepped out of her office, Marchetti was in the hallway talking on his phone in rapid Italian. He saw her and ended the call. Leaving already? It is only 2 p.m. You said I work 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. I need to pick up my daughter. Marchetti nodded approvingly. Good. You set a boundary, and you keep it. I respect that. Did you make progress today? Elena handed him a USB drive. Preliminary findings on Bella Vita. The full report will be ready by Friday. Marchetti pocketed the drive without looking at it. Tony will drive you home. Same time tomorrow morning. In the Mercedes, Elena watched the city slide past and tried to process what had just happened. She had completed her first day working for the Mafia, and it had felt like a normal office job. Strangely normal. When Tony dropped her off, Mrs. Chen was waiting outside with Sophie. Her daughter ran to her, backpack bouncing. "Mama, I got a gold star on my spelling test." Elena scooped her up, breathing in her daughter's presence like oxygen. "That is amazing, baby."
"I am so proud of you."
As they walked upstairs, Sophie chattered about her day. Her best friend Sarah, the new hamster in their classroom, the book they were reading, Normal 7-Year-Old Concerns, a world away from financial statements and men who collected debts with threats. That evening, after dinner and homework and bath time, Elena tucked Sophie into bed. "Mama, are you happy?" Sophie asked suddenly. Elena stroked her daughter's hair. "What makes you ask that? You smile more today. You look less tired." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "I had a good day at my new job, baby. A really good day." Sophie yawned. "Good. You deserve good days, Mama." After Sophie fell asleep, Elena opened her laptop and continued working on the Bella Vita report. She worked until midnight, fueled by coffee and something she had not felt in years. Purpose. The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm. Elena arrived at the office at 5 a.m., worked until 2 p.m., picked up Sophie, helped with homework, made dinner, tucked Sophie in, then worked several more hours on reports and analysis. She was exhausted, but differently than before. This was the exhaustion of mental challenge rather than physical drudgery. This was the exhaustion of using her brain at full capacity for the first time since leaving Colombia. Her reports impressed Marchetti. He implemented almost all of her recommendations for Bella Vita. Within 2 weeks, the restaurant's food costs dropped by 18% and profit margins increased. He gave her access to the second restaurant, then the third. Each time she found inefficiencies and proposed solutions. Each time Marchetti listened and acted on her advice. He also did something unexpected. He asked about Sophie, about her school, about her interests. He remembered details from previous conversations. Once, when Elena mentioned Sophie loved drawing, a package arrived the next day. Professional art supplies. Expensive ones. Elena wanted to return them, but Marchetti waved her off. "Consider it a performance bonus. Your daughter should have good tools if she has talent." It was confusing, disorienting. This dangerous man who collected debts and ran criminal operations was being kind to her. Respectful. Almost. Protective. Elena did not trust it. Could not trust it. But she also could not deny that her life had improved dramatically in 3 weeks. She had money in her bank account for the first time in 7 years. She was paying down debt. She was using her education. She was being challenged and valued, but the guilt gnawed at her. Was she betraying everything she believed in by working for someone like Vincent Marchetti? Was she putting Sophie at risk? Was she becoming complicit in whatever illegal activities funded these legitimate businesses? If you are still watching and wondering what happens next, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Elena's journey is just beginning, and the choices she makes in the coming weeks will change everything. The next twist is something none of us see coming. One Friday afternoon, as Elena prepared to leave, Marchetti called her into his office. "Sit down, Elena. We need to talk about something." His tone was serious. Elena's stomach dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" "No. You have exceeded every expectation I had." Marchetti leaned back in his chair. "Which is why I need to tell you the truth about something, about why I really hired you." Elena's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. 3 weeks ago, when I came to Martinez's diner to collect his debt, I had no intention of forgiving it. I was going to take his business and use it as an example. That is how I maintain control. Through fear and consequences, Elena felt sick. But then I saw you through that kitchen window at 4:22 in the morning, chopping vegetables with this look on your face, this determination. And I thought about my mother. Elena blinked in surprise. "Your mother?" "She came to America from Naples when I was 15. Single mother. Worked 3 jobs. Cleaned offices at night. She did whatever it took to give me opportunities she never had." Marchetti's voice was softer than Elena had ever heard it. "She died when I was 23, right when I was starting to make real money, right when I could have finally given her the life she deserved." "I am sorry," Elena said quietly. "When I saw you, I saw her, someone drowning but refusing to quit. Someone sacrificing everything for their child, and I realized I had a choice. I could destroy Martinez and collect $50,000. Or I could do something my mother would have wanted. I could give someone like her a real chance. Elena did not know what to say. Marchetti leaned forward. I am not a good man, Elena. I have done terrible things. I will do terrible things again. But working for me does not make you complicit in those things. The businesses you manage are completely legitimate. The money you earn is clean. You are
not betraying yourself. You are surviving, just like my mother did, just like millions of people do every day. Elena felt tears threatening. Why are you telling me this? Because you have guilt written all over your face every time you walk through that door. Because I want you to understand that you made a smart choice, not a shameful one. Because in 6 months, when your contract ends, I want you to choose to stay. Not out of obligation or fear, but because you see the value in what we are building together. Before Elena could respond, Marchetti's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. I need to take this. Tony will drive you home. Elena left his office with her mind spinning. Everything she thought she understood about this situation had just shifted. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Elena stood at her window looking out at the lights of Queens. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marchetti. Check your bank account. Elena opened her banking app and gasped. He had deposited an extra $5,000. The message said, performance bonus. You earned it. Elena sat down hard on her bed. $25,000 she had earned in less than a month. More money than she had seen in years. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Marchetti. Monday, I need you to analyze the import company. It is bleeding money somewhere and I cannot figure out where. I think someone is stealing from me. Find them. Elena stared at the message. This was different from inefficiency analysis. This was investigating theft. This was getting deeper into Marchetti's world. She typed back, what happens when I find them? The response came immediately. That is my concern, not yours. You just give me names and evidence. Leave the rest to me. Elena set down her phone, her hands shaking. She knew what leave the rest to me meant. She knew the kind of consequences Marchetti delivered to people who stole from him. Could she do this? Could she be responsible for whatever happened to the person she identified? But then she looked at Sophie sleeping peacefully. She thought about the parent-teacher conference she could now attend. The art supplies, the money in her bank account, the future that was finally becoming possible again. She picked up her phone and typed, I will start Monday. The response was a single word. Good. Elena lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering who she was becoming, and wondering if she would recognize herself when the 6 months were over. Monday morning arrived with heavy rain. Elena sat in the back of the Mercedes, watching water stream down the windows as Tony navigated through traffic. Her stomach churned with anxiety about what she was about to do. The import company, Marchetti Mediterranean Imports, operated out of a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. When Tony pulled up to the industrial building, Elena saw workers already unloading trucks despite the early hour. Inside, the office was cramped and chaotic. Boxes of invoices were stacked haphazardly. The computer system looked ancient. A harried woman in her 50s sat at the main desk, talking rapidly on the phone in Italian. When she saw Elena, she covered the receiver. Can I help you? I am Elena Rodriguez. Mr. Marchetti sent me to review the financials. The woman's expression shifted immediately. Fear flickered across her face before she composed herself. Of course. I am Carmela. I manage the operations here. Let me show you to the back office. Carmela led Elena through the warehouse to a small windowless room with a desk, a filing cabinet, and a computer that looked like it was from 2010. All the records are in here. Paper files in the cabinet, digital files on the computer. Password is taped under the keyboard. Carmela's voice was tight. If you need anything, I will be at the front desk. She left quickly, and Elena heard her speaking in rapid Italian to someone on the phone immediately after. Elena spent the morning swimming through financial chaos. The bookkeeping was a disaster. Invoices were misfiled. Expenses were poorly categorized. The inventory system was a nightmare of contradictions. But beneath the chaos, Elena began to see patterns, discrepancies, small amounts here and there. A case of olive oil listed as delivered but never recorded in inventory. Wine bottles ordered but somehow disappearing before they reached Marchetti's restaurants. By lunch, Elena had identified the problem. Someone was skimming product. Not huge amounts, just enough to fly under the radar. Maybe 3 or 4 cases per shipment. Enough to add up to thousands of dollars over months. The question was who? Elena pulled up delivery manifests and cross-referenced them with inventory receipts. She created spreadsheets tracking every discrepancy. She looked at who signed off on deliveries, who processed invoices, who had access to the warehouse. 3 names kept appearing. Carmela, a warehouse supervisor named Frank, and the company's accountant, a man named David Chun. Elena's heart sank. David Chun. She wondered if he was related to Mrs. Chen, her neighbor who watched Sophie. The Chinese community in Queens was tight-knit. It was possible. By the end of the week, Elena had assembled irrefutable evidence. The theft had been going on for at least 18 months. Conservative estimate, $60,000 in stolen product. All 3 suspects were involved, working together to cover their tracks. Friday afternoon, Elena sat in Marchetti's office with her report laid out on his desk. He read through it methodically, his expression unreadable. "You were certain about this?" he finally asked. "Yes. The evidence is clear. They have been very careful but not careful enough." Marchetti leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Do you know what I am going to do to them?" Elena's mouth went dry. "I can imagine. Can you?" Marchetti's eyes were hard. "They stole from me for 18 months. They made me look weak. In my world, weakness is death. Examples must be made." Elena forced herself to hold his gaze. "They are criminals. They knew the risks. Are they?" Carmela has a disabled son. Her husband died 5 years ago. She is drowning in medical bills. Frank is supporting his sister's 3 kids because she is in rehab. David Chun has a gambling problem he is trying to hide from his wife. "How do you know all this?" Elena whispered. "I know everything about everyone who works for me." Marchetti stood and walked to the window. "They are not evil people, Elena. They are desperate people. Just like you were. Just like my mother was. Desperation makes people do stupid things. So what will you do?" Marchetti turned to face her. "That depends on you." Elena blinked. "On me? You found them. You have proven your value to me beyond any doubt. So I am giving you a choice. Option 1, I handle this my way. They disappear. Quietly. Permanently. No one steals from me again. Option 2, you handle it your way. But understand, your way becomes your responsibility. If they steal again, if they talk, if they become a problem, that is on you." Elena felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "You cannot put this on me. This is your business, your decision. No, this is your test." Marchetti's voice was firm but not unkind. "You want to work in my world but keep your conscience clean. Fine. Show me how. Show me there is another way. Because I genuinely do not know if there is." Elena's mind raced. What would her way even look like? Fire them? Call the police? Both options seemed inadequate for the magnitude of what they had done. "I need time to think." "You have until Monday." Marchetti handed her back the report. "Go home. Think." "But Elena, understand this. Whatever you decide, there are consequences. For them. For you. For everyone. There are no clean choices here. Only less dirty ones." That weekend was torture. Elena could barely sleep. She played with Sophie, took her to the park, made her favorite meals, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about Carmela's disabled son, Frank's nieces and nephews, David Chen's family. But she also thought about Marchetti's words. "They made me look weak." In his world, that kind of weakness could get people killed. Including her. Including Sophie. On Sunday evening, Elena made her decision. She texted Marchetti. "I know what I want to do. Can we meet Monday morning? Just us and the 3 of them." His response. "Brave choice. 7 a.m. at the warehouse. Monday morning came too quickly. Elena arrived at the Red Hook warehouse to find Marchetti already there, along with Tony and another large man she did not recognize. Carmela, Frank, and David sat in chairs in the main office area, all looking terrified. Marchetti gestured for Elena to take the lead. Elena stood in front of the three thieves, her heart pounding. You know why you are here. You have been stealing from Mr. Marchetti for 18 months. I have documentation of every missing case, every discrepancy. The evidence is overwhelming. Carmela started crying. Please, I have a son. He needs constant care. The medical bills, they never stop. Frank's voice shook. I was just trying to help my sister get clean. The kids needed food, clothes for school. David said nothing, but his hands trembled. Elena took a deep breath. Mr. Marchetti asked me what he should do with you. Do you know what his usual response is to people who steal from him? All three nodded, faces pale. But I convinced him to try something different. Elena pulled out 3 new contracts she had drafted over the weekend. You are going to pay back every dollar you stole. The money will be deducted from your paychecks over the next 3 years. Additionally, you will work an extra 10 hours per week, unpaid, to compensate for the time and resources Mr. Marchetti spent investigating this. The 3 exchanged glances, not quite believing what they were hearing. However, Elena continued, her voice hardening. If any of you steal again, if any of you speak about Mr. Marchetti's business to anyone, if any of you give him any reason to regret this mercy, there will be no second chances. Do you understand? They nodded frantically. One more thing. Elena looked each of them in the eye. You are going to help me completely overhaul this operation. New inventory system, new bookkeeping procedures, new oversight protocols. You know where all the weaknesses are because you exploited them. Now you are going to help me fix them. Marchetti stepped forward. Sign the contracts. Thank Ms. Rodriguez that you are still breathing. And understand that this mercy is hers, not mine. You owe her your lives. All 3 signed immediately. After they left to return to work, Marchetti turned to Elena. That was either very smart or very naive. Time will tell which. They deserve a chance. Elena's voice was stronger than she felt. Everyone deserves a chance. Even me? Marchetti's question was quiet, almost vulnerable. Elena met his eyes. I have not decided yet. Something flickered in Marchetti's expression. Respect, maybe, or something else Elena could not quite identify. Over the next 6 weeks, Elena threw herself into restructuring Marchetti Mediterranean Imports. She implemented a new inventory management system. She created checks and balances. She trained staff on proper procedures. Carmela, Frank, and David worked harder than anyone, clearly terrified of disappointing her. The warehouse became more efficient. Profits increased. No further theft occurred. Elena's reputation within Marchetti's organization grew. Other managers started asking for her input. She was invited to meetings about the catering company, the bakery supply business. Her recommendations were valued, implemented, successful. The money kept coming. By month 3 of her 6-month contract, Elena had saved $30,000. She paid off all her credit card debt. She opened a college fund for Sophie. She even started taking one online business course, working on it late at night after Sophie went to sleep. Sophie noticed the changes too. Mama, why are you singing? She asked one morning. Elena realized she was humming while making breakfast. Am I? I did not notice. You never used to sing. But now you do. I like it. Elena hugged her daughter close. I am just happy, baby. We are going to be okay. And for the first time in 7 years, Elena actually believed it. But happiness in Marchetti's world was always temporary. One Thursday afternoon in her 4th month, Elena was working in her office when Marchetti burst in. His phone pressed to his ear, his face dark with rage. How long ago? He demanded. Where? Who else knows? He listened, then ended the call and looked at Elena with an expression that chilled her blood. We have a problem. My accountant, Richard, was just arrested. FBI raid on his home. They have files, recordings, everything. Elena's heart stopped. What does this mean? It means the FBI is building a case against me. Richard knows everything. About all my operations. Legal and otherwise. If he cooperates, if he gives them what they want, a lot of people go to prison. Elena stood on shaking legs. Am I in danger? Marchetti hesitated. You work for me. They will investigate anyone connected to me. They will look at you, question you, examine your finances. But I have not done anything illegal. All the work I do is legitimate. That may not matter. Association is enough sometimes. Marchetti ran his hand through his hair. I need to think. I need to make calls. Go home. Do not come in tomorrow. Wait for me to contact you. What about Sophie? Elena's voice rose in panic. If they investigate me, if they think I am involved in criminal activity, could they take Sophie? Marchetti grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. I will not let that happen. Whatever happens, I protect my people. Especially you. Do you understand? Elena nodded, tears threatening. Tony drove her home in tense silence. When Elena picked up Sophie from Mrs. Chun, she held her daughter too tightly, trying not to let her fear show. That night, Elena could not sleep. She paced her tiny apartment, her mind spiraling. What had she done? She had been so focused on the money, on finally having stability, that she had not fully considered the consequences of working for someone like Vincent Marchetti. Her phone rang at 2 a.m. Marchetti, I need you to do something for me, he said without preamble. And you are not going to like it. What? I need you to take Sophie and disappear for a few days. I have a place upstate. Secure. Private. Tony will drive you at 5 a.m. Why? What is happening? Richard is cooperating with the FBI. They are planning raids on all my properties, including my office. They will seize files, computers, everything. I do not want you anywhere near it. Elena's chest tightened. This is real. This is actually happening. Yes. But Elena, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Elena thought about everything that had happened over the past 4 months. The opportunities, the money, the respect, the kindness toward Sophie, the mercy he had shown Carmela, Frank, and David because she had asked. Against all logic, against every instinct of self-preservation, Elena heard herself say, yes. I trust you. Good. Pack for you and Sophie. Essentials only. Tell Mrs. Chun you are taking a short vacation. Tell no one else anything. Tony will be there at 5 a.m. The call ended. Elena stood in her dark apartment, wondering if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life, or if trusting Vincent Marchetti was the only choice that made sense anymore. At 4:45 a.m., Elena and Sophie stood on the sidewalk with 2 hastily packed bags. Sophie was still half asleep, confused about why they were leaving so early, why Mama looked so scared. Are we going on an adventure, Mama? Sophie asked, rubbing her eyes. Yes, baby. A little trip to the countryside. Just for a few days. The Mercedes pulled up exactly at 5 a.m. Tony loaded their bags without a word. As they drove through the empty streets of Queens, then across the George Washington Bridge heading north, Elena held Sophie close and watched the city disappear behind them. They drove for almost 3 hours. The landscape transformed from urban sprawl to suburbs to actual wilderness. Finally, Tony turned down a narrow private road that wound through dense forest. The house that emerged was not what Elena expected. It was beautiful but understated. A modern cabin with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake. Solar panels on the roof. A wraparound deck. Mr. Marchetti will be here tonight, Tony said as he carried their bags inside. Everything you need is stocked. Kitchen is full. There are books, movies, games for your daughter. The property is secure. No one knows about this place except Mr. Marchetti and a few trusted people. What am I supposed to do here? Elena asked. Wait, stay safe. Tony's expression softened slightly. He is protecting you, Ms. Rodriguez. That means something. After Tony left, Elena explored the house with Sophie. It was fully furnished with expensive but comfortable furniture. The kitchen was indeed fully stocked. Sophie's eyes widened when she found a room filled with toys and books. Mama, whose house is this? A friend's. We are staying here for a little while. I like it here. It is quiet. Sophie picked up a stuffed bear. Can we stay forever? Elena's heart ached. No, baby. Just a few days. That afternoon, while Sophie played by the lake under Elena's watchful eye, Elena tried to process everything. She was hiding in a safe house owned by a mafia boss while the FBI raided his businesses. This was her life now. Her phone had no service, but the house had internet. Elena checked the news on her laptop. Sure enough, there were reports of FBI raids on multiple properties connected to Vincent Marchetti. Agents seizing documents. Investigations into money laundering, racketeering, extortion. Elena's stomach twisted. What if Marchetti went to prison? What happened to her then? She had saved money, but not enough to survive long-term without income. And who would hire her now? Her resume showed 4 months working for a man under federal investigation. As the sun set over the lake, Sophie fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from playing outside all day. Elena covered her with a blanket and stood at the window, watching darkness claim the forest. Headlights appeared on the road. Elena tensed until she recognized the Mercedes. Marchetti emerged, looking exhausted. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, the most casual she had ever seen him. How bad is it? Elena asked as he entered. Marchetti poured himself a whiskey from the bar. Bad. They seized everything from the office. Computers, files, all of it. They are building a RICO case. Racketeering influenced and corrupt organizations. They want to take down my entire operation. Are you going to prison? Maybe. Probably. Marchetti drank deeply. My lawyer says they have enough for an indictment. What happens after that depends on how much Richard gave them and how good my legal team is. Elena sat down heavily. What about me? What about Sophie? Marchetti sat across from her. That is why I brought you here. The work you did for me was completely legitimate. Every dollar I paid you came from legal businesses. You have nothing to hide from the FBI. But being associated with me will bring scrutiny you do not need. So what do I do? Marchetti pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000. This is your full payment for 6 months, even though you only worked 4. Also this. He handed her another document. A letter of recommendation, written on generic business letterhead with no connection to Marchetti Enterprises. It detailed her skills, her accomplishments, her work ethic. It was glowing. This letter is from a management consulting firm that technically exists but has no connection to me that the FBI can trace. Use it to get a real job. A safe job. Start over clean. Elena stared at the check and the letter. You are cutting me loose. I am setting you free. Marchetti's voice was heavy. I should never have pulled you into my world. It was selfish. I saw my mother in you and I wanted to help, but really, I was just creating another victim. You did help me. Elena's voice cracked. For 4 months, I had hope again. I had a future. I remembered what it felt like to use my brain, to be valued, to provide for my daughter. You gave me that, and now I am taking it away. No. Elena wiped her eyes. You are protecting me. There is a difference. They sat in silence for a long moment. Sophie stirred on the couch but did not wake. Tell me about your mother, Elena said quietly. You mentioned her before but never the full story. Marchetti stared into his whiskey. Her name was Francesca. She was the strongest person I ever knew. When my father died in Italy, she brought me to America with nothing but 2 suitcases and $500. She worked as a seamstress, a housekeeper, a cook, whatever it took. He paused, lost in memory. She wanted me to go to college, become a lawyer or a doctor, something respectable. Instead, I fell in with the wrong people, started doing favors, running errands, eventually running operations. By the time I was 23, I was making serious money. But it was too late. She had cancer. Stage 4. All the money in the world could not save her. I am sorry, Elena whispered. Her last words to me were a warning. She said, Vincenzo, this life you have chosen, it will give you everything except the one thing that matters. Peace. Marchetti looked at Elena with raw honesty. She was right. I have money, power, respect through fear. But I have never had peace. Not for one single day. Elena did not know what to say. When I saw you at that diner, I thought maybe I could give someone else what I could never give my mother. Security, opportunity, a chance. But all I did was put you in danger. Just like I put everyone close to me in danger. You also showed me I was capable of more than just surviving. Elena's voice was firm. I was drowning before you hired me. Maybe I am going back into the water now, but at least I know I can swim. You reminded me of that. Marchetti smiled sadly. You are too kind to me, Elena Rodriguez. Maybe you deserve more kindness than you think. They talked through the night. Marchetti told her stories about his mother, about the choices that led him down this path, about the weight of living a double life. Elena told him about Colombia, about Sophie's father, about the shame she had carried for 7 years about being a dropout and a single mother. As dawn broke over the lake, Marchetti stood. Tony will drive you back to the city tomorrow. Go back to your apartment. Live your life. Use that money to build something stable for Sophie. Forget you ever knew me. Will I see you again? Elena asked. If I am lucky, no. If I go to prison, I do not want you visiting me. If I somehow beat this case, I still do not want you in my world. You deserve better. Elena stood and did something that surprised them both. She hugged him. Marchetti stiffened, then slowly wrapped his arms around her. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. When she pulled back, there were tears in Marchetti's eyes. Take care of that little girl, he said roughly. She is lucky to have you. He left before Elena could respond. The next morning, Tony drove Elena and Sophie back to Queens. The city looked the same, but Elena felt fundamentally different. She had entered Marchetti's world one person and was leaving it another. Over the next few weeks, Elena used Marchetti's letter of recommendation to apply for jobs. She was honest about her background. A Columbia dropout who had spent 7 years working in food service before doing financial consulting for various small businesses. To her amazement, companies responded. Her analysis skills were impressive. Her recommendations in the reference letter were glowing. She had interviews, good ones. 3 weeks after returning from the lake house, Elena accepted a position as a financial analyst at a mid-sized accounting firm in Manhattan. The pay was $65,000 a year, with benefits, and a 401k. It was not the $5,000 a month Marchetti had paid her, but it was legitimate, clean, safe. Elena started her new job with a mixture of relief and sadness. The work was interesting but not as challenging as what she had done for Marchetti. Her coworkers were nice but kept professional distance. No one asked about her personal life or remembered details about Sophie. She missed Marchetti's intensity, his directness, the way he had seen her as more than just an employee. But she did not miss the fear, the constant awareness of danger, the moral compromises. Sophie adjusted well. Elena could now afford a better apartment, still in Queens but cleaner and safer. Sophie had her own bedroom for the first time. They could afford small luxuries, new clothes when needed, books, art supplies, occasional dinners at actual restaurants. Mrs. Chun still watched Sophie after school, refusing to accept more money even though Elena could now afford to pay her properly. You helped me when I had nothing, Elena said. Please let me help you now. Mrs. Chun smiled. You help me by being happy. That is enough. 2 months after starting her new job, Elena was home making dinner when the news came on. She almost did not watch, but Sophie was doing homework at the kitchen table and the TV was already on. Breaking news, the anchor said. Vincent Marchetti, alleged mob boss, was found dead today in his Tribeca penthouse. Police are investigating, but initial reports suggest suicide. Marchetti was facing multiple federal charges including racketeering, money laundering, and extortion. He was 42 years old. Elena dropped the wooden spoon she was holding, clattered on the floor. Sophie looked up, concerned. Mama, are you okay? Elena could not breathe, could not process what she had just heard. Vincent Marchetti, dead. Suicide. She thought about their last conversation at the lake house. This life will give you everything except the one thing that matters. Peace. He had never found peace. And now he never would. Mama, you are crying, Sophie said. coming over to hug her. Elena held her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. I am okay, baby. I just heard sad news about someone I knew. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Elena opened her laptop and searched for information. The news was everywhere. Speculation about what it meant for his organization. Analysis of his criminal empire. Commentary about the investigation. But nothing about the man Elena had known. The man who had seen his mother in her. Who had given her a chance when no one else would. Who had shown mercy to 3 desperate people because she had asked. Who had protected her when it mattered most. Elena opened a new document and began to write. Not for publication. Just for herself. And maybe someday for Sophie. The true story of Vincent Marchetti as she had known him. A man who was many terrible things. But also, in his own complicated way, kind. 3 days later, Elena received a package. No return address. Inside was a single envelope with her name written in elegant script. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter. Dear Elena, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I want you to know that I made this choice with clear eyes. The life I lived had only one possible ending, and this way was better than the alternatives. You asked me once if I deserved kindness. The truth is, I do not know. But your belief that I might, that brief moment of being seen as something other than a monster, that gave me more peace than anything else in my adult life. I have left instructions with my attorney. There is a trust fund for Sophie's education. Full ride to whatever college she chooses. Cannot be traced back to me. Tell her it is a scholarship. Let her have the opportunities you and my mother never had. Build a good life, Elena. You have everything you need to succeed. Your intelligence. Your strength. Your integrity. I was just an interruption in your story. A strange chapter. But the story goes on, and it will be a good one. Thank you for reminding me that people like me are still people. Even if we are also monsters. Goodbye, Vincent. Elena read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in a locked box where she kept her most important documents. She would never tell anyone about this letter. Never tell anyone what Vincent Marchetti had really meant to her. But she would never forget. 5 years later, Elena Rodriguez stood in the executive conference room on the 45th floor of Brennan Financial Group, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. At 31 years old, she was the youngest senior financial consultant the firm had ever hired. The presentation she had just delivered to 3 potential clients had gone flawlessly. Her analysis of their company's financial inefficiencies was thorough, her recommendations were innovative, and her confidence was unshakable. Excellent work, Ms. Rodriguez, said Martin Brennan, the firm's founder. I think we just landed a very lucrative account thanks to you. Elena smiled professionally. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. I am glad I could demonstrate our value. As the clients filed out, shaking hands and making plans for follow-up meetings, Elena gathered her materials. Her assistant, a bright recent graduate named Jessica, approached with her schedule. You have a call with the Chicago office at 3, then the quarterly review meeting at 4. Also, your daughter's school called. Something about a presentation tonight? Elena checked her watch. Sophie's science fair. Of course. Tell Chicago I need to reschedule. Nothing is more important than that presentation. Jessica smiled. Already done. I moved it to tomorrow morning. What would I do without you? Elena said warmly. Probably forget to eat lunch. Like you did yesterday. Jessica handed her a protein bar. Eat this. Doctor's orders. You are not a doctor. Close enough. After Jessica left, Elena sat alone in the conference room for a moment, allowing herself to feel the weight of how far she had come. 5 years ago, she had been terrified, grieving Vincent Marchetti's death, and uncertain about her future. Now she was thriving in ways she had once thought impossible. The job at the mid-sized accounting firm had been just the beginning. Within a year, her talent had been noticed by Brennan Financial Group, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in New York. They had recruited her aggressively, offering twice her salary and the chance to work on major corporate accounts. Elena had hesitated at first. Imposter syndrome screamed that she did not belong in their world. But then she remembered Vincent's words. You have everything you need to succeed. Your intelligence, your strength, your integrity. So she had taken the leap, and she had soared. Elena left the office at 5:30, earlier than most of her colleagues but late enough that she had put in a full day. The firm had been accommodating about her schedule. Once they realized her productivity was higher than employees who stayed until 9 p.m. every night. She had learned to set boundaries, to ask for what she needed, to value her time with Sophie above everything else. The subway ride to Queens was familiar and comforting. Elena had moved to a better neighborhood 2 years ago, a spacious 2-bedroom apartment with actual closets and a dishwasher. Sophie had her own room, decorated with her artwork and posters of her favorite bands. But Elena had chosen to stay in Queens. This was home. This was where she had survived the worst years of her life. She was not about to abandon it now that things were good. When Elena arrived at their apartment, Sophie was already there, having let herself in with her own key. At 12 years old, Sophie was responsible enough to be alone for the hour between when school ended and when Elena got home. "Mama," Sophie called from her room. "I need help with my poster board. The corner keeps curling up." Elena dropped her briefcase and went to help. Sophie's science fair project was about renewable energy sources, specifically solar power. Her poster board was covered with detailed charts, photographs, and explanations that showed genuine understanding of complex concepts. "This is really impressive, baby," Elena said as she helped secure the corner with better tape. "Did you do all the research yourself?" "Mrs. Chun helped me find some sources, and Mr. Patterson gave me extra time in the science lab to test my hypothesis." Sophie beamed with pride. "Do you think I have a chance at winning?" "I think you have already won by creating something this thorough and well-researched. But yes, I think you have a very good chance." They took the subway together to Sophie's school, PS 127. The science fair was being held in the gymnasium, which had been transformed with rows of tables displaying student projects. Elena watched Sophie set up her display with the same attention to detail Elena brought to her own presentations. Like mother, like daughter. As other families began to arrive, Elena recognized many faces. Mrs. Chun came, beaming with pride as if Sophie were her own granddaughter. Several of Sophie's teachers stopped by to admire her work. Even Mr. Martinez, who still owned his diner in Queens, showed up with his wife. "Elena," Mr. Martinez hugged her warmly. "Look at you, so successful. And Sophie, such a smart girl." Elena hugged him back, remembering everything he had done for her in those dark years. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Martinez. It means so much to us. You are family, Elena. Always." As the judges made their rounds, Elena stood back and watched Sophie explain her project with confidence and clarity. Her daughter was articulate, knowledgeable, and passionate. Nothing like the scared little 7-year-old with a fever who had once worried about her mama being tired all the time. Sophie had grown up watching Elena fight her way back from rock bottom. She had learned resilience without Elena ever having to teach it explicitly. She had learned that education mattered, that hard work paid off, that setbacks were not endings but detours.